In this video, we'll examine Donald Cerrone's experience in one of the most terrifying situations a cave diver may encounter, stirring up silt and scrambling to find a route out. Donald Cerrone made the decision to go on a diving expedition on Friday, August 10, 2018, in Cozumel, Mexico, where he ultimately overcame one of his biggest phobias. Donald Cerrone, sometimes known as Cowboy, was born in Denver, Colorado, on March 29, 1983. He is a former professional kickboxer, actor, and retired mixed martial artist, MMA. He competed in the lightweight and welterweight divisions of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, UFC. Donald and Lindsay are married, and at the time of Donald's cave dive in August 2018, the couple had a 6-week-old child. Donald began bull riding professionally while still in high school, and he also picked up scuba diving. At the age of 20, he started kickboxing training. He later pursued a career in mixed martial arts, where he earned the moniker Cowboy due to his affinity for cowboy hats. Donald is well recognized for his risk-taking antics, unique fashion sense, and passion for extreme sports. He made the decision to embark on a diving expedition in Cozumel, Mexico. Donald is a skilled cave diver who has been involved in the activity since he received his certification in high school. Donald and his companion were in Cozumel on this expedition to see the area. They spent a few days discovering shipwrecks and coral reefs. However, Donald and his companion chose to continue the experience by exploring the Cenote El Aerolito cave network. The sea is accessible from this cave. It's a seemingly unremarkable body of water in Mexico that also happens to be the habitat of a non-dangerous crocodile. A large network of underwater caves, however, extends for miles beneath the crocodiles. It is a particularly distinctive and captivating diving location for experienced cave divers. One of the 18 cenotes on the island of Cozumel is the Aerolito Cenote. Despite the fact that Aerolito has a drive-up parking garage, many of these are challenging to reach. Donald claimed that his friend had taught him a lot about cave diving. His wife Lindsay discouraged him before he left for the dive because she thought they would get into trouble because he was diving with an older man whose abilities were fading. He ignored his wife's advice and assured her that everything would be okay and that she shouldn't be worried. Donald kissed his wife and his newborn baby goodbye as he prepared to depart on the adventure. She insisted again that she didn't want him to take the dive. Donald, though, countered, "What are you worried about?" Additionally, he added, "This is what I do. Every time I return home, I'm returning home." To make sure everything was good with them in the cave, Donald made the decision to order another air cylinder. A 3,000 psi gas supply would be divided into 1,000 psi for entering and exiting the cave, and 1,000 psi for exploration according to the rule of thirds. If necessary, the remaining 1,000 psi will be used for emergencies. They used the narrow surface access to enter the cave with their equipment. They moved along using the signs that other expert divers had set there to aid other divers in finding their way around this cave. Due to the fact that cave systems are frequently large and one could easily get lost, it is customary for skilled divers to map out caverns using these lines. In addition to the rules, cookies are utilized to indicate specific locations inside the cave and provide more detailed directions. At some point, they had to change from one line to the next. First, his companion wrapped the line around his neck so that he could make the changeover using only 2 hands. His buoyancy device, a tiny apparatus that can be filled with air to change buoyancy, fell away as he attempted to tie off and hung to the cave ceiling. His line then wrapped itself around him as he turned around and kicked up his feet. His pal started to fear as Donald swam over to help him untangle the rope. He began to kick furiously and turn around, hitting the cave wall repeatedly, which only served to build up silt inside the cave. They couldn't see themselves within the cave because of the kicked-up silt, which also made it difficult to see around them. A huge cloud known as a silt-out was developing underwater. Silt out happens when fine particulate deposition on the bottom or nearby flat surfaces interferes with the diver's visibility to the point where it is no longer functional. It is really challenging to see where you're going because of the scattering of the particles, which produces a kind of mist. Such impairment is unquestionably a major problem when you're submerged, and it becomes considerably more of a problem when you're trying to escape a cave before you run out of air. The worst emotion somebody can ever have in this kind of circumstance is terror, which his friend experienced when he realized he was in trouble. Despite the fact that you have the chance to live, fear alone can cause death. He held the main line while he gazed at his companion and at the open exit that he could use to escape and save himself. However, Donald made the decision to disregard one of the most crucial diving laws, according to which self-preservation is far more crucial when diving. In order to prevent the deaths of two divers, it is essential to save oneself when a diver is endangering others because they are trying to help. Donald was unable to simply abandon his pal in the muddy water. He consequently made the decision to forego his escape and take the chance of saving his friend from his suffering. Donald tried unsuccessfully to reach his friend since he became disoriented as soon as he entered the silted-up area. He didn't know the man's current state and couldn't see with his flashlight because it had malfunctioned during a ferocious kicking. Donald also hoped that his friend had not, in this awful circumstance, dropped his regulator. In these risky circumstances, what hope do these two diving companions have? Well, after entirely losing track of his old pal, Donald found himself alone in the muck. Due to poor vision, he lost everything to the silt, lost track of where he was, and was unable to locate a path up or down. He was utterly appalled. He also experienced extreme fear. He was now breathing rapidly and fearfully. He hit his head on the ceiling while trying to figure out how to get out. He suddenly understood that he needed to calm down so that his dread wouldn't kill him. Fear had to be pushed aside before he could see a workable answer. Though he could make out light reflections from his two timepieces, he was unsure of where he was right now. He didn't know where he was going, but he didn't really know where he came from. This started to make it easier for him to move across the cave's irregular layout. Donald kept traveling blindly and only used his senses to estimate his distance traveled. He tried to find his way back to what he thought was the right path whenever he realized he was swimming against or into the stream. He was able to grab hold of the main line, though not quite long enough. He continued to navigate while bumping his head against the cave walls. When they first entered the cave, he calculated the path of the exit from the first jump to be 126 degrees, so he checked his compass. This is a bit of a stretch, since even though you may be facing the exit in the curving tunnel of the cave, if you are not at the right place, that path may only go to another tunnel's wall. Donald made an attempt to swim there, but hit a wall. When he attempted to descend further, he hit another wall and went back into full panic mode. In his distress, he violently kicked and flailed, but fortunately for him, he made it out of that area and came onto the main line. Even though he was in clear water, Donald grabbed it in the wrong spot. To exit the cave, he had to travel through the silted-up area, which was some 2,400 feet away. He was forced to venture into the mud and navigate by feel until he came across a hole. He didn't know which direction the hole headed, but he went through it. But when they reached the cave, he discovered that they were also swimming against the river and that he was doing the same. This suggests that he was swimming against the current. In a fit of fright, he turned back to the main line, which was going the other way from the silt. As he lay there gasping for air, all he could think of was the words he told his wife and child. "I'm coming home." His air cylinder was becoming low, and he was still breathing heavily. He began to experience a variety of thoughts, and he began to fear that the cave might be his final home. He was well down in the sea, and only had roughly an hour of air left in his cylinder when he suddenly realized this in the midst of his terror. He knew at that instant that he might later drown. He attempted to use his buoyancy control device to elevate himself in an effort to find a way out of the cave through the ceiling. He seized his buoyancy aid and began breathing into it, filling it entirely. With it full, he leaped to the cave's ceiling and curled up on its ceiling, still thinking of his family. Donald's greatest fear was drowning, so he reasoned that if he ran out of air, he would keep breathing from his buoyancy aid until he did. But as a fighter, he knew it was wrong to give up now. He had a newfound sense of hope and was motivated to escape. He started to scurry around the cave's ceiling while upside down. Then he recalled that the cave's ceiling was accessible through a sizable gap. He made the choice to hunt for that crack. When he eventually located it, he followed it until he noticed a light shining through a twisted hole, but he was unable to get through it because his tank became stuck. This is a triumph for a strong-willed person like Donald, who, despite being in a terrible and challenging circumstance, didn't give up. It seemed as though his wife and child kept him motivated until he found a solution. Unexpectedly, his friend had also managed to escape. What led to this? It found out that his friend had escaped the cave by grabbing hold of the percent line after becoming caught in the silted-up area. Donald informed his friend that they had taken their final dive together. "Had a bit of a scary moment today, but I'm coming home," Donald wrote his wife after that. Donald claimed that because of how challenging the encounter was, he frequently had dreams about becoming lost in the cave. After the dangerous incident, which he called a catastrophic worst-case scenario, he was relieved to still be alive. We appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. If you liked what you saw, click the bell icon, like, and subscribe buttons to be notified when we post another thrilling cave diving story.